Hello everyone, my name is Jeremy Pena, and today I want to talk about a popular 90s TV show named Buffy the Vampire Slayer and the influence it's had on the TV industry over the years. Buffy the Vampire Slayer is a show about a young girl named Buffy Summers, who is destined to be a slayer and save the world by fighting various vampires and monsters.
When I created the show of Buffy, I had made the movie already. Well, I'd written the movie already, and the movie was designed to sort of twist horror movies and empower this young girl.
The idea of Buffy the Vampire Slayer was first introduced to the world through a movie which would end up being a huge disaster and a box office fail. The movie failed for many reasons, like the messy writing and lackluster characters, but a main reason for Buffy the Vampire Slayer failing as a movie was because of the disagreements between Joss Whedon and the studio producing the movie. He wanted to make the movie carry a dark and scary tone, but the studio wanted a light and campy movie, and after all the changes made to the original script, Whedon would ultimately end up leaving.
I spent a lot of time thinking about, well, what would sustain it, and that click of, oh yeah, High School was a horror movie. It was a horror movie of humiliation and isolation and power and cruelty, and to put that into the horror movie genre every week, there would be enough for, let's say, 7 years worth of entertainment.
To make the story fit the format of a TV series, Whedon needed to find a way to develop multiple stories over a course of episodes, and that's when it clicked to him that he could use Buffy being a high school student to his advantage. The show allowed Whedon much more freedom than the movie, and gave him the ability to make these storylines and characters that he could slowly develop over time. What made Buffy the Vampire Slayer so popular and likable to many fans was the fact that it was relatable, because behind all the monster slaying was a story about a group of high school friends who go through the same high school drama most people go through. Many fans found the character arcs and the relationship between the characters appealing. This one fan wrote on the website Quora that they loved how the show took the dumb blonde girl stereotype and flipped it to make the character strong, which is what Whedon intended. For me personally, it was the story and writing that made me fall in love with the show. Buffy worked because it's more than just a show about horror, and it still holds up today, and you can tell by its influences on other shows today. Over the years, Buffy the Vampire Slayer has been stated as a big influence for many scriptwriters and producers to start making TV shows. Shonda Rhimes, who has worked on shows like Grey's Anatomy, The Catch, and Still Stars Cross, stated in an interview with The Hollywood Reporter that Buffy the Vampire Slayer helped her rediscover TV. She says, "I was very inspired by Buffy, mainly because it felt very fresh and new, and like something that hadn't been on television before. I felt like I rediscovered television again by binge watching the first 5 or 6 seasons of it in a row." Julie Plec stated in an interview with TV Insider that Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Angel were big inspirations to make the switch from working on movies to TV shows. And for those of you out there who have watched The Vampire Diaries, you can see the influence she took from both of these shows. And for those who don't know, Angel is a spin-off series of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, also created by Joss Whedon. Buffy the Vampire Slayer has become the blueprint for many of these shows over the years, especially now as the supernatural genre becomes more popular. But for those who haven't seen the show, the question might be, why did Buffy the Vampire Slayer work as a TV show when it failed as a movie? The format that Buffy the Vampire Slayer had worked because it made you want to tune in weekly. Around this time, you could say that TV shows didn't focus on building stories over the course of a season. Shows like Friends focused on episodes individually, which meant that as a viewer of the show, you weren't required to understand what happened in the prior episodes to watch the new episodes. You could just pick it up at any time and be able to watch it. With Buffy the Vampire Slayer, you had to understand the story that was being told, and it was sort of an incentive. You were rewarded for watching each episode because it would lead to a big conclusion at the end of the season. In one way or another, TV shows will continue to be inspired by Buffy the Vampire Slayer. From what I've noticed, a lot of shows use the same format that Buffy the Vampire Slayer popularized. For example, shows like The Flash, The Vampire Diaries, and Supernatural all follow the Monster of the Week / Big Bad Conclusion format. And even if the show creators don't state Buffy the Vampire Slayer as an inspiration, they most likely state a show that was inspired by Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
I would argue that the show Supernatural would not exist without Buffy the Vampire Slayer. There are so many parallels between Supernatural and Buffy. Like I said, I'm not going to dig into it too deep here, but if you've watched both shows, I think you can see where I'm coming from. There's just a lot of similarities there. And again, if Buffy did not exist, I don't know if Supernatural would have existed, let alone had the success that it did have.
From the format to the genre, Buffy the Vampire Slayer changed the TV industry forever. Thank you for tuning in.